Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. How are you all? I hope you are enjoying Ramadan as well as virtual learning studies of Pakistan International School, Taif. This is a science class for grade 7 and today's lecture number 9. We are on chapter number 3, reproduction in plants. Today we will see formation of seeds and fruits. Yes, dear students. In the previous lectures, we have studied a lot about reproduction in the plants as well as pollination and topics related to that. Today we will see after reproduction, we have seen some changes as well. Now we will see uh, the result of those changes that after the fertilization in the plants, in the flowers, what is going to happen. We have seen before that pollen grains just fall on stigma and just make a pollen tube and reaches to the ovule in the ovary. We have seen that how the seeds and fruits are formed. We will see here detail. Many plants grow and bear fruits to protect their seeds. A seed protects the embryo inside it. In addition, shapes of seeds and fruits help in their dispersal. So, how seeds are helpful for the dispersal and for the growth of new plants? It depends on their shapes as well. So let's take a look on the seeds. So if you see here, after fertilization, an ovule becomes a seed. The embryo and its store of food are covered by a tough seed coat. If you see, this is a seed. And this seed is actually an ovule. Ovule, if you see this structure, this is what? An ovary. And in ovary, if you see, there are so many ovules. All the ovules can be one only. So this is one ovule. When the pollen grain reaches to these ovules and after fertilization, some changes going on. And due to these changes, seeds are formed. The ovules change into the seeds. And now if you see that ovule becomes a seed and embryo and its stored food are covered by a tough seed coat. That ovule becomes a seed, and inside where the fertilization is done with the cell, one cell has become an embryo and the other cell has become this food store. This all, and this stored food is used by this embryo for further development. This is hard seed coat, and this hard seed coat protects this embryo as well as this stored food. If you see, lots of seeds are present in your home. We use them for cooking as well. Peas, beans, and lots of other grains are there. These all are seeds, and because they are hard, um, uh, for the protection of the embryo inside it. When we sow these seeds into the soil, so this embryo grows into different parts. So the most important part of seed is embryo. So the main purpose of this seed coat is to protect this embryo. The embryo grows into a new plant, and when we sow this seed, this embryo grows into different parts and plants arises from this embryo. It is having different parts. If we see a radicle and a plumule are the very two important um, that parts of the plant of this embryo. So this part of the embryo develops into the first root of the new plant, radicle. Radical first is R and root is also first R. So this part through which the root grows, that is called radical. And plumule, this part of the embryo develops into the first shoot or stem, that is called plumule. So embryo is having two parts, radical and plumule. If you see in this structure, this is a bean, and if you see, this is embryo of this seed, and here stem is growing, and here the root is growing. Root grows downward to the ground, and this is plumule to the upper of the ground surface. So these two are cotyledons. As we have seen before, these are the stored food, and this is a seed coat. When you soak like some just you can do an experiment. You soak these seeds in the water for just 2-3 days, and you just break them apart, so you see all these structures in the seed. Yes, dear students, the very important and next part of that seed is cotyledons. This part of embryo supplies food to the growing young plant. So these two are cotyledons. These are stored food. So this one is plumule because a shoot is arising from that. This is called a radical. Look, you can see the root is arising from that, and this is the seed coat, and these are cotyledons, store of food. So if you see here, ovary of the flower that changes into fruit, and ovule inside it changes into seeds, one seed or lots of seeds. Okay, here in the previous slide, if you see this one, there is an activity that by which you can see, you can have the different differences between two type of flowers or plants. One is called monocot and other is called dicot. Monocot are those plants or those flowers which are having one cotyledon, like one leaf, and dicot plants or flowers are having, which are having, di means two, and two cotyledons like this. All the plants are not dicotyledons. Some are dicotyledons and some are monocotyledons. So we can have monocot seeds and dicot seeds as well. So let's take a look on here in some differences of the monocot and dicot seeds. This is very important term. It will help you in the next classes. If you see, this is a common bean and this is a corn. These are the seeds which you use at home. But if you see the bean, it is having two sides like this. So when you soak it, it can break from the center, and you find out two sides of this. These are two cotyledons. And you see, when the shoot is growing, it leaves are divided into two. So it is having two leaves when it grows outside of the ground. And if you see corn seed, so corn seed, here is its cotyledon, this one, the store, and this is one cotyledon. It cannot be divided from the center easily, as well as it is having, you see here, here is plumule, this one from which and the shoot can arise, the this one, and here is the radicle through which the root can arise. So they are monocotyledon plants. Mono means they are having one cotyledon, and they are having two cotyledons. That's why they are called dicot seeds. If you see here dicot versus monocot, it means there, if the seeds are dicot and monocot, definitely they arise from dicot or monocot flowers. So there are differences between dicot and monocot flowers as well. If you see this flower, in dicot flowers, the floral parts are always five or multiples of five, means table of five. 5, 5 twos are 10, and like that. So if you see here in this flower, so you can have these petals, especially petals and sepals are the floral, specific floral parts. So they are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So they are 5. Here they are also having 5 petals. So it means they are dicotyledons. So if we see monocotyledonous plants or flowers, so you see they are multiples of 3, usually 3 floral parts. For example, this is 1 petal, 2 petal, and 3 petal, and also it is having 1, 2, and 3 sepals, also all multiples of 3. Like this, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. A multiple of 3 is 3 twos are 6. So the main difference is monocot is having multiple floral parts which are having multiple of 3, and dicot multiple of 4 or 5. They can be 4 or 8, they can be 5 or 10. So you can see around you there are lots of flowers which are having these type of characteristics. Yes, dear students, last but not the least, we are at last we have reached up to very important step of this reproduction, that is fruit. So how the fruit is formed? We have seen that in the ovary, ovule, for example, this is one ovule, this becomes the seed, and this ovary, this broad part, this changes into fruit. Yes, so the ripened ovary is called a fruit. The ovary wall forms the fruit wall. If you see this outer skin, outer peel, which sometimes we peel off, like in oranges, in mango, etc., so that is called pericarp. Pericarp, like that, is fruit wall. Fruit wall not only having a one skin layer, but it is um, composed of 3 layers. Number 1 is skin, number 2 flesh, and number 3 inner layer. So these 3 collectively form a pericarp. If you see outer skin, that is pale, that flesh, that is very juicy, that actually the um, extract of the fruits, we just eat them and make milkshake and like smoothie, etc. And the inner layer, that is very tough, and that is around the seed which is present inside it, that is actually ovule. So that tough um, layer, that inner layer, that is for the protection of the seed. So the mature fruit may contain a single or many seeds, like in mango, plum, apricot, we are having one seed, but like in oranges, papaya, we are having lots of seeds as well. So the pericarp has 3 layers in most of the fruits, like peaches and mangoes. The outer layer is skin, middle layer is fleshy, and inner layer is tough or hard. Some fruits have hard or dry pericarp. This pericarp is very hard and dry. like in nuts, for example, in almonds and in walnut, uh, peanuts, that pericarp is hard, that is not fleshy. So here is extend your thinking of which fruits are eaten as vegetables. So you have to write me the answer for that. This is your assignment. Okay, do you know that plants do not produce flowers and fruits for us? Because plants do not know about us. So why do they produce flowers and fruits for us? But they produce fruits and flowers to protect and disperse their seeds. That is very important process for their survival. Okay, so you can see here a structure of a mango's fruit, that is outer covering, that is cutting of that. The upper one is a skin, or that is called exocarp. That flesh which we eat, that is mesocarp. Meso means center, exo means upper, outer, and endocarp, that is hard, and that is around the seed. So if we open this endocarp, we find this seed inside it. So actually that is the covering of the ovule. So now we will see once again how the ovary changes into fruit. If you see, this is tomato, this is tomato, and the flower is changing into fruit. Actually tomato is a fruit, that is not a vegetable, because it is having seeds inside it. And there are some other vegetables which some other fruits which we use them as vegetables. If you see its flower, so you see here, that is ovary, that is upside down image of that flower, and that is a stigma. So when the pollen grains, these are the stamens, pollen grains from here goes into that, and then here are ovules, they fertilized with. There are lots of pollen grains, so lots of pollen grains, because ovules are so many, so they will reach unto the ovules. And later on, what happened when the fertilization is done? So what happened, this ovary is started to get ripened, and these ovules change into the seeds. You see in the seeds of the tomatoes, as well as look, this whole structure. First we see this peduncle by which the flower is attached to the branch, and this one also the same thing. Here these are the sepals, and here the sepals becomes very smaller because the fruit gets bigger in size. And then we are having these petals. We know that when the fruit is going to be ripened, ovary is going to be ripened. So what happened, these petals and sepals shed off, but in some sepals just remain intact with the fruit. And if you we see anthers also shed off. And if you see this whole, this one up to this here up to stigma, this is called stigma style ovary, female reproductive part. So this is ripened ovary, this whole, this one, this is ripened ovary. And you see this is style, here it is long, and in the fruit it becomes very short. And here is the stigma that becomes very short. If you see tomato carefully, if it is present in your home, so you will find these type of parts of that. Yes, so just take a review of that process from flower to fruit. This is a flower after fertilization. What happened? The sepals, stamens, as well as these petal sepals are going to wither or like shed off. Then ovary begins to swell here. Then it going to be ripened. Petals drop off, and seeds develop inside fruit, and fruit grows bigger. So the ovary when grows bigger until it becomes a fruit. Yes. Okay, dear students, now we will see two other plants that Like many plants such as snake root and ginger has been used for medications for long ago. So this is a snake root plant which is used for the medicine, and this is ginger, which we use as in a dry form here, sorry, dry form, and in the fresh form, in gavas, in like and lots of medications for fever, for vomiting, from for like weight loss also. And then this snake root, extract of the snake root plant flowers and leaves, we use them for snake bite, etc. Yes, let's take a review of this chapter. If you see what we have seen in this chapter, first, pollination is the transfer of pollen grains about the stamen, from the stamen to carpel of a flower. Number 1 point. Number 2 point, we have studied two kinds of pollination: self and cross pollination. Third point is self pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower. And cross pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of the flower to the stigma of another flower. So if we see the next, there are for cross pollination, colored petals and all the thing, sticky stigmas, nectar are very helpful. If you see poplar, willow, apple, papaya, they do cross pollination. If we see plants reproduce both sexually and asexually, like there are two types of reproduction. Asexual reproduction is like with one parent only, and sexual reproduction for from both the parents, combination of two gametes, and they form a zygote. If we see here, fertilization is the process, the fusion of sperm, and after that zygote is formed, and zygote is changes into embryo. So after fertilization, the ovary of the flower changes into fruit while the ovules become seeds. Yes, dear students, uh, that's all for today. I hope you understood the lecture and enjoyed it well, and you got a lot of information about the reproduction in the plants. Wish you all the best.